I'm Jennifer Loftin with the team from Common Core Inc. In our session on Bridging the Gap, two teachers from Massena District in Northern New York shared some strategies that they've developed to address the challenges they're facing this year as they implement the Common Core. Strategies not just for engaging their students, but also the community in which they're embedded. Would you introduce yourselves?
I'm Julie Albert, and I teach 4th grade at Madison Elementary in Massena Central School District.
My name is Dee Cook, and I teach 2nd grade at Jefferson Elementary in Massena.
Julie, would you mind sharing some of the strategies you've developed specifically for parent engagement?
One of the strategies that I had to bring parents on board, because they were the most important component in student involvement, is my web page. What I ended up doing is taking all of the lessons that are in the Common Core modules, and I created a coinciding video link, so when my students go home, they're able to look at the videos and follow up what I've been doing in class, and also kind of as a pre-teach. They can go home with their parents, and their parents can learn the curriculum also, so they're not left in the dark. Also, what I've created with my students is a Common Core notebook where they have a left side, right side notebook set up that goes with every new concept and how I teach it with the models and the strategies. And last but not least, everyone does a newsletter. And I used to do a newsletter on Fridays, but now I changed it and I send it home every Monday, letting the parents know what I am teaching in math that week, so they can look at the videos ahead of time if they choose to prepare their child and themselves for the homework that's coming home.
Are those similar to the strategies that you've developed in your class, Dee?
They are similar. I also have a web page. I piggybacked on Julie's idea and set up some videos. There aren't as many at our grade level, but the same type of idea. I also developed a Math Zet, which is a little mini newspaper that I put in the back of their folder. Since 2nd graders have a harder time remembering to bring a folder and a notebook, we put it right in their folder, so it's a good helper tool for parents. We also have delivered 2 parent nights for our parents, where we led them through a series of examples on curriculum and how to solve problems that their students would be seeing on their homework. So those 2 parent nights were very well received with our parents.
So in addition to these communication strategies that you've used to engage parents, what are you doing to address the knowledge gaps that your students are coming in with in this transition year? They're coming in with some missing pieces. They're coming in with some missing pieces. So how do you address those issues?
That was a really big concern of mine, especially with 4th grade students, because they really have no prior knowledge. And I spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year thinking about the modules, thinking about everything that NTI has taught me. And I thought, well, what is common in all of the modules all the way through? Well, the common link was the models and the strategies. So I decided at the beginning of the year to spend a few weeks teaching the tape diagram, the number bond, the place value chart, and the RDWW, along with the number line. And I spent the first couple of weeks working on that and spending the time as I go through each module, focusing primarily on those strategies and models, and it's working.
And this is going to be easier as the years go on because Dee is teaching those models in her 2nd grade classroom.
Yes.
We are.
How about you? What strategies are you using?
We did the same type of thing. I looked at where our students were coming from with the program that they left and identified about 8 strategies or skills that I felt that they would be missing. Number bonds, rec and rec work. We did RDW procedure, sprint procedure first. I taught them in isolation of the modules before we started. And then that made the transition into the start of the module much easier. We also used some materials from the 1st grade module to help bridge the gap so the look would be the same when we actually started the 2nd grade materials. So that helped bridge the gap. Also, for example, when I started number bonding, the children, even though I had taught it in isolation, they really struggled. So I backed up to a model that they knew, which was place value blocks. And then once I did that with the children, all of a sudden it opened a new world for them. So being flexible within the module as we're teaching, knowing that if it's not working, that we need to go back to a more concrete model to bridge that gap for them. That's really helped.
Great. Since you've had to address the gaps that your students are coming in with, obviously that requires a little extra teaching time to address those strategies, to teach those skills and procedures outside of the context of a lesson. So given that, and given that the pacing is already a concern for a lot of teachers, how are you adjusting your instruction now to have a comfortable pace through the rest of the year?
I think that is a huge concern. I know in my heart right now I'm not going to get where I need to get this year, and I have to be comfortable with that. The second thing that is so important is math can be implemented in any other subject. I spend an awful lot of time in my science right now, teaching part of the math modules, not in essence the actual modules, but I'm front-loading the modules in my science lessons. For example, Module 2 is dealing with conversions of metric units. Knowing this, when I was teaching Module 1, instead of teaching plants at the beginning of the year, I chose to teach my measurement unit to front-load leading up to Module 2 because they needed the basis. So if you're teaching a lot of your math in other areas and exposing them to it, I think that is really necessary to bridge part of the gap. Also, what I do sometimes is I ask my kids to preview a video as their homework the night before I teach the concept, so that they have a background and my lesson is going a little bit faster during the day because they have a little previous knowledge.
Great, that's a great strategy.
So when I'm planning, I'm mindful of the time frame, but I want to be mindful of the intention or the objective of the lesson.
Yes.
I want to be mindful of the rigor of the lesson. So if it offers 3 fluencies, I might do 1 fluency during the beginning of the lesson. I always do the application problem. I might share 2 or 3 strategies, even though there might be 6 different strategies on their boards. I always put them in my gallery because I have a cool gallery where they get to be the mathematician for the day. So students can still look at those other models throughout the day, but they don't get to share them verbally all the time. So I've shortened the number of students that can share. There are many, many problems during the problem set, whether we do them on the floor, whole group, or a problem set. So I've shortened the number of each of those. So I still am focusing on the objective and the rigor within the module or the lesson, and then we always end with a debrief, because at my level it's very, very important, at all levels it's very important, but it's very important for my kids to start explaining what they learned and how they learned it. Down the road when they need to write about that, if they haven't been able to talk about it first, they're not going to be able to write about it. So I'm always mindful that they are explaining things verbally.
That's really very wise of you, and it really highlights the expertise that you're bringing into the modules, the way that you just described, honoring the objective and the rigor. It shows that you really understand the way that the shifts have asked you to include fluency, application, and conceptual understanding, that you're adjusting your pace within that framework.
So overall,
Great job.
okay. Overall, I'm about 20 days behind, but I'm hopeful that with our work during place value, that we will be able to shorten up some of the examples in Module 4 and 5 to help accommodate our 8 modules. So.
I want to circle back to something related to parent engagement. Sometimes there can be some anxiety when you send homework home and the parents aren't familiar with the strategies you're asking students to use. Can you address that a little bit?
I can. I am very intentional about the homework that I send home. I evaluate throughout my lesson during the day whether I think the students can handle the homework that I am sending home. And if they can, I send it home. If they can't, I hold that homework for a day, 2 days, 3 days. We are also mindful at our grade level to our district policy of the amount of time that we should be spending on homework at our grade level. So we have modified the amounts of homework on a sheet of paper that would go home to our parents. And the parents also have that helper sheet in the back of their folder with the strategies on it so that they can look at what we did in class with the problem set or the exit ticket with that helper sheet, and then most of the time the children are very successful on their homework.
So you've developed a whole system of strategies really to help you communicate and interact with parents.
Yes, yes.
And I want to ask you, Julie, can you share a moment of one of your success stories about the student achievement that you've seen this year using our curriculum?
Absolutely. One in particular, as I had referenced earlier, my main focus was to focus on the models and the strategies throughout the year. You never really know whether you're making the right decision at that point. You're basically gambling. And what ended up happening over vacation, our recent vacation, one of my students went away on a trip. And they went with another educator from a different part of our state. And the educator said to this child, "Can you do this multiplication algorithm using the place value chart?" And this little girl, let's call her Morgan. Morgan said, "Well, sure I can." So she was telling me this story after she got back from vacation. And I looked at her and I said, "Well, Morgan, how did you do it?" And she said, "Well, Mrs. Albert, what I did is I set up the place value chart, and I know that you had told me multiplication is just repeat addition. So what I did is I used the place value chart like I did with addition and multiplication." I said, "Oh," I said, "how did that turn out?" And she said, "Well, I solved the problem." And at that moment, I thought, yes. And it doesn't feel like a big moment, but the true fact was, I hadn't taught multiplication yet. I didn't use the strategy yet with multiplication. Morgan took that strategy and she carried it into another math understanding. At that moment, it validated the choice of the models and strategies was the right one.
So that ability that she demonstrated, that's something new that you haven't really seen much of at that level before in prior years?
Not at all. Not at all. They can solve the algorithm, but the thing was, she used the place value chart to solve the algorithm. She had taken that understanding of the place value chart, which shows me she has a true understanding of how to use the models and strategies and apply it to algorithms. And that's the whole purpose of the math right there.
That's amazing. Great. So as we wrap up, could you just maybe leave us with a thought about what you're most excited about as you leave the NTI? What are you going to take back with you into your schools?
Well, actually there are two things. I attended a session yesterday on Module 4 for geometry, and the NTI presenters did a marvelous job of giving strategies and ideas on how to use this in the classroom. And along with that, probably the most wonderful part of being in the NTI is the personal connections you get with everyone else. And they share their ideas, they share what they have created, so I in turn can take what they have shared with me and share it to the next group of people. That's what it's all about. We're in it together.
How about you, Dee?
I agree with Julie. The personal connections that we've made while we've been here to go back and share with others is fantastic. I sat in the second grade module yesterday and we went through various ways to add and subtract the arrow way, the chip model, compensation. And then when I was looking at where to go today, I saw first grade's doing the same thing, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So I want to see where it starts. And so that will also help me bridge the gap with my students who did not have those strategies last year, so I can bridge that gap into our module. So I'm very excited to go home and do that.
That's great. Dee, Julie, thank you so much for taking the time today to share this with us again. We really appreciate your participation as part of our panel at the NTI, and we wish you all the best this coming year. We look forward to more success stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.